You are now locked in and listening to The Issue.
This guy is a franchise quarterback, and no, I don't want to hear any pushback on that.
It feels like a top 10 roster to me. It feels like it can win a championship.
This is The Issue.
Yo, what's up? We are back. It is The Issue. It is Thursday, June 29th, and every single week we just have more and more NFL to talk. That's going to be the same story this week. So we keep getting closer and closer to the season. We're getting close to the divisional predictions, right? This is the last episode of June. So we get into the divisional predictions around like mid-July, even early to mid-July. We start bringing you the predictions for each division in the NFL. So as we move closer to that, we're going to start gearing you up for it. So today to start off, we have Tim's rant on the San Francisco 49ers. And kind of just keep an eye on them because there are a lot of good teams in the NFL that seem to take steps down after being very good and have these inflated projections. So we're going to talk about that first. To finish out the first segment, we'll have hits and misses. And then in the second segment, so we have 3 rising, 3 falling. 3 NFL teams that are on the rise that are going to come up a little bit this season and impress some people. And then we have 3 teams that are going to fall. It seems to happen every year in the league. We're going to give you our predictions for the 6 teams that we expect to be in those 2 categories. And then we will have the news to finish the second segment. And into the third segment, a little rant. And we're going to take some shots at Baker Mayfield just because we haven't in a while and we just thought, why not?
Is it really the issue without taking shots at Baker Mayfield?
Exactly. I feel like we've kind of gotten away from ourselves and what we do best. I mean, we haven't been ripping Baker every waking moment, so we have to bring that back a little bit. But, guys, we appreciate you watching no matter how you are watching. We are on YouTube, Spotify, and Amazon Prime Video if you want to watch the show. And then if you want to just listen to the show, of course, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Amazon Music, among others.
Yeah, you mentioned the rise and fall, so we're going to talk about that twice today. One, more specifically with the Niners here. And then, of course, a little segment in the second segment. So, the Niners, right? And I heard Colin Cowherd and a couple other people on mainstream media saying, well, it happens every year. One team is really, really good, and they kind of drop off, right? A lot of people will speculate maybe Philadelphia. Buffalo's a popular one, and I would agree with the Buffalo take. Maybe not quite as much with Philly. I think with Philly, you're in the right... The people that are saying, Philly, you're in the right direction, in the right conference. I would look more at San Francisco. It's a little bit troubling when you look at what normally causes these issues. Quarterback problems is one. Injuries is another. Offensive line problems is another. And as much as I like San Francisco's offensive core, let's be real here. George Kittle's an old 29, right? That's just how it goes. He's been hurt now in the past 3 seasons. Now this past season he was more healthy than others, but still a little bit banged up. Christian McCaffrey is a very old 27. He has not had 2 years back-to-back playing over 15 games in the last 3 years. So that's a bit of an issue. Trent Williams is an old 34, their best offensive lineman, and we know that offensive lines generally dictate, one, your running game, which is wildly impactful in San Francisco. We know that. And also the health of your quarterback, which is already in question with Brock Purdy's elbow. So there's a lot of things not going their way. And now let's look at their schedule, right? I don't think they got the hardest schedule, but I don't think they got a highly favorable schedule. And I think we talked about when I was looking at Pittsburgh's schedule, and I saw that, they get San Francisco at some point in the year. That could be pretty tough. Later in the year, especially if we get them, that would be tough. Will we actually get to open up with them? So it's Pittsburgh hosting San Francisco. For San Francisco, that's not a very good break. We know that they've started slow in the past couple years. Under Kyle Shanahan, they normally start slow. I think that's going to be even accentuated with Brock Purdy's injury. Is he going to be 100%? Is he even going to start, or is it going to be Sam Darnold? Right, so you're looking at the schedule, and I wrote it down, right? So they're at Pittsburgh, at the Rams. Then they come back home for the Giants, Cardinals, and Dallas. They go to Cleveland and Minnesota. They come back home for Cincinnati, go to Florida to face Jacksonville. Then they have the Buccaneers at home, at Seattle, at Philly, Seattle at home, at Arizona, Baltimore at home, at Washington, and then you have the Rams. Couple things stand out to me, right? I'm looking right now. So they go to Pittsburgh. That's a bit of a hike. And then they're at the Rams. So they have to go over to Pittsburgh and then all the way back for the Rams. And then they're home against the Giants. That's fine. Home for 3 straight. And then they go all the way back across country to Cleveland and then home. And then they go back across country to Minnesota and then back home for Cincinnati. And then you go to Florida for Jacksonville. And then when you could already just stayed in Florida for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, nope, you come home for the Bucs. Up to Seattle's not bad, but then you go to Philly, and then you come back home. You get Seattle at home. Then you go to Arizona, that's not bad. Baltimore at home's not bad. Then you go to Washington and then come back home for the Rams. That's a lot of travel. For an older team, an injury-prone team, that's a team that plays very physical. That's a lot of travel. So they didn't get a break there. Let's start with that. Second of all, I'm looking at the quarterback, and I like Brock. Well, let's assume Brock Purdy's healthy, right? Because we could play the what-if game all day. Well, what if his elbow hurts until week 4 and then he's good? Or what if he doesn't start until week 5? So we could play the what-if game all day. Let's pretend Brock Purdy's going to be healthy for the start of the season, and he's fine. And I like Brock Purdy. I think he's a very fine quarterback for what they're paying him. I would be interested. If it was the Steelers, I'd be like, cool, I like Brock. Let's roll with him, right? But in 12 of the 17 games that the Niners are going to play this year, they have a quarterback disadvantage. I'll go through them all. I would argue Kenny Pickett right now is a better quarterback than Brock Purdy. I think he's got more arm talent. I think he moves a little bit better. Now I think Brock, with the surrounding players, could put up very similar statistical numbers, but I think Kenny's a more talented quarterback. I think Matt Stafford, if he's healthy, is a more talented quarterback. Dak, for all his shortcomings, and as much as we discuss that I don't think Dak is worth the money they're paying him, I think Dak is a much better quarterback than Brock Purdy at this point. I think Deshaun Watson, as long as he is not... He's going to be better than last year. He took like 2 years off. He's going to be better. I think Deshaun's a better quarterback. At least physically, he's a more athletic quarterback. We can kid ourselves here, but Kirk Cousins is a big boy quarterback. He is much better than Brock Purdy. Joe Burrow, we don't even need to discuss that. Trevor Lawrence, we don't even need to discuss that. One that's going to shock people, I think Geno Smith right now is a better quarterback. I think he's a more veteran presence. He's a bigger, stronger athlete. Jalen Hurts is obviously a better quarterback. Lamar is a better quarterback. And once again, Matt Stafford to finish off the year is a better quarterback. So 12 of 17 games, they're going to have a worse quarterback. I think they only are better than Daniel Jones, whoever starts in Arizona, Baker Mayfield for the Bucs, who we'll get to later, Arizona again, and then Washington, whoever they start, Jacoby Brissett, Sam Howell, whatever. 12 of 17, you're going to have a worse quarterback. So we look at let's sum up here. We look at the things that usually usually lead to teams dropping off. Age. Well, a lot of their young offensive pieces are certainly, or not even young. A lot of their impactful offensive pieces are starting to be on the downslope of their career, especially Trent Williams and George Kittle. You look at, their offensive line, well, it wasn't actually all that good last year. It was okay. Trent Williams is very good left tackle, but in the interior, it's pretty weak, and they actually lost a couple pieces this offseason, so look out Brock Purdy. And then you look at the schedule. You look at quarterback play. I think it could be very, very shaky for the Niners. I don't think it's crazy. Now, I'm not saying that they drop down and win 7 games, but if they go 9-8 and sneak in as the third wildcard team, would that surprise you? I don't think it would surprise me one bit.
No, and this is something that we've always talked about. And you just touched on it. 12 of 17 games. That's alarming. That's alarming. To have the worst, most important position in the game.
That's
right.
Yes. You could be bad at a lot of places. If you're good at quarterback, you are a viable NFL team.
Yes. And you have to be good at quarterback.
When's
the last time somebody won in this league without a very competent quarterback? We'll say competent because... every now and then you'll catch a team that sneaks in, with a Ryan Tannehill when they made that run, right? But he's still a competent quarterback.
If we're talking Super Bowl winners, Nick Foles, that's about it.
Yeah.
In recent memory, that's Nick Foles, that's the list.
And I don't even think Brock Purdy's not on the Nick Foles level yet.
No, I think Nick Foles at that point was more of a veteran, had some more nuance. And for all Nick Foles' shortcomings as well, right? He's a big, strong athlete. Nick Foles is a tall, stronger athlete than a Brock Purdy. I think he's got a better arm at that point in time than Brock Purdy does. And I like Brock. He's accurate. He gets the ball out on time. He does a lot of things well. But let's not act like he's a world beater. We were talking about, the ball dies. He does not have a very strong arm.
Yeah. Just to play devil's advocate for a second, I think the one thing that the 49ers do well is run the football and dominate the trenches at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
I think that's very important to make to have sustained success. So you can tell usually when you watch a football game in the first half, if they're dominating at the line of scrimmage and they can just do whatever they want with the run game, you're like, okay, this is over. It's done.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the time if they can dominate the line of scrimmage, but then you're going to have something that plays off of that. You're going to need a quarterback that can throw off play action.
Yeah.
You're going to need a quarterback that can get out of the pocket,
and
scramble, throw.
And Brock can, but he doesn't do anything special.
He doesn't do anything. I'm not even saying you have to do something like Mahomes because that's one guy and nobody else can do things like that.
Yeah.
But Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow. I mean, you go through the league, and the top 7 to 8 quarterbacks all can do something at least a little bit special to make things happen.
I mean, even if you go on guys more his level, more on Brock's level, Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr, Dak Prescott.
Prescott, yeah, I was going to say.
They are all much more, I think, consistent players and better throwers of the football.
Dak has a way better arm.
Yeah, let's not kid ourselves. Kirk can rip it. Like, Kirk can rip it. So it's that's what I just think that's my team. If I had to pick a team right now that would drop off, they went to the NFC Championship, won 13 games, 12 games, something like that.
Yeah,
that's the team that drops by 5 wins. It doesn't blow me away.
Sure.
That's all I'm saying.
Sure. Maybe that'll be a hit coming up in the future, but for now we have this week's hits and misses to get to, so let's go.
All right, hit number 1. Packers offensive lineman Elgton Jenkins admits that Aaron Rodgers will be missed within the organization. Now, I'm not saying he's wrong here. Anytime you lose a Hall of Famer, and we've said that.
Yeah.
Anytime you lose a Hall of Famer, you're naturally going to take a step back. You're going to miss the production of a Hall of Fame level quarterback. For as much as we have ripped on Aaron for some of his decisions and some of his play, especially in the playoffs, he is a Hall of Famer, and you're going to somebody who's clearly not. And that's kind of the point. Like, how many times, I'm not saying that Jordan Love has to be a Hall of Fame level player, but we have not only not heard anything positive out of Packers camp, but we've heard David Bakhtiari coming out and saying, guys, this is a rebuild. Matt LaFleur coming out and saying, pump the brakes on the expectations. It's like, how many people are going to come out and say, hey, this team is going to be significantly worse than it was last year because of the main position that changed, Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love?
Yeah.
I'm not asking for him to be a Hall of Famer, but nobody has any confidence in him? Is that what I'm hearing? It's too much negativity for me to say as a Packer fan, oh, we're going to be pretty good this year. No, you're not. No, you're not.
These are very, clear warning labels that are slapped on the side of this season already.
Like flammable,
the
aerosol cans.
This product may cause cancer type deals. So, I mean, I think to this point, though, I think the production of Aaron will be missed. I'm not sure the personality of Aaron will be missed.
I think,
I mean, at the end of the day, he's a funny guy.
I think the experience of him will be missed. He's been around the league a lot. That experience, that moxie, that comes with experience will be missed for sure.
Oh, yeah. For example, when Roethlisberger got hurt that season, right, I felt confident. I felt safety in the fact that when he was taking snaps and when he was our quarterback, right? When he was starting, and
even if he wasn't the best,
right? It gives you a sense of security, of safety.
Yeah.
This guy knows what he's doing. He's been here for how many years at this point? We're good. The ball's in his hands. We're good. Then it switches to a Mason Rudolph, and you're like, oh good God! Every time he snaps the ball, you're like, here comes a pick.
Yeah,
you never know what's coming.
Or Doc Hodges, where it's like, don't throw outside the numbers, please. I don't even want to see you try.
Yeah, so I feel like that's what we're going to see in Green Bay this year.
It's possible. All right, miss number 1 here. I've always been a huge Warriors guy, mostly because I think Steph. I like Steph Curry a ton. More of an undervalued guy going into college, kind of works his way through Davidson. Makes himself a prospect, right? So I like the Warriors. I think they've been very, very, they're a very smartly run organization as well. I like Steve Curry's a very smart guy, and I think even through the Jordan documentary, he became even more likable, right? So, but either way, I've always said they're very smartly run, but they trade Jordan Poole for Chris Paul, which is fine to get rid of the Jordan Poole contract and also a little bit of immaturity in the room, right? The Draymond punch. I get the move of Jordan Poole. I think he's a better asset than you might think, though. I think you could have gotten more than an aging, old, small Chris Paul, who's been fairly injury-prone over the last couple years. Now, I'm not saying you go get Kristaps Porzingis. Obviously, he got moved before that deal. I'm not saying that you'd be able to get a first-team All-NBA, but you could get another guy. Jordan Poole gives you 22 a night, hyper-athletic, can shoot the lights out of the gym, and you got Chris Paul. You got smaller and older in a league that's more about speed and size more than ever.
And being young.
Yeah, so it just doesn't make a ton of sense. Now, if they go get other pieces, I think if this is the last move that they make, then that's a problem, right? If they go get another piece to maybe complement him and somehow switch the roster up a little bit more, then we could see it work out. If Chris Paul's like your third guy off the bench, but if you're relying on him for some big minutes here, there could be some problems in Golden State.
I agree. I think I want to see them turn it around. Right now, we're Golden State fans. Question though, just kind of off topic, real quick. If Pittsburgh had a team, would you support them? Would that be your favorite basketball team?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Now, unless they were like, I mean, if they come out and they're the Cleveland Browns for the first 5 years, they're just awfully run. Turmoil, like some controversy. Well, then I can switch my opinion. I'm not like tied. It's different, like with the Steelers, Pirates, like Penguins.
Those are franchises.
They've been here a long time, and like ever since I could talk, it was just you just knew that those were your teams. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like if a basketball team came in, I don't think I'd be like beholden to them. So now if they were good, I'd want them to succeed. If they were good, I'd root for them. If they were like kind of tumultuous upstairs, like almost embarrassing to it, like the Lions, you're just like, not worth it.
It's tough.
It would be even tough. If they weren't that good, but they were like, grown-ups upstairs, I'd be like, okay, that's fine. Yeah, I'll root for them.
I was just wondering. I saw a tweet about that
I'd go
this
to the
week,
games.
and I was like,
I'd go to some games.
It's interesting to think about.
Yeah, I'd go to some games for sure. All right, hit number 2 here. NHL got smart, wised up. NHL and its players decide that they will not wear any Pride warm-ups or anything like that throughout the season. Aren't selling any of that gear. It's like they said, in spirit of keeping the game about the game. And that is exactly what we've been preaching. Mm-hmm. I don't care what you do whatever you want. I want my hockey, baseball, football, whatever the sport is, to be about hockey, baseball, football, whatever the sport is. I want the sport to be about the sport, the game to be about the game.
Right.
I don't need views, opinions, political blah, 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 social issues, emotional. I don't care.
Yeah, I don't need politics in my sports.
I tune into sports to escape the reality of how messed up this world is.
Yeah.
I don't need the messed up world infiltrating the only thing that I can sit down with a bourbon and be like, thank you, this is fantastic. I don't have to hear about any BS.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
I don't need the BS in my time to not hear about BS.
Can we just get a round of applause for the NHL real quick? I mean, finally a league displays some confidence. They show that they have
some guile, some backbone.
Let's be real. They showed that they had freaking balls. And the NHL has some stones, and they finally made a move that all the fans have been asking for, and that every league has been too afraid of the blowback and the pushback from like the big media corporations and everything. You're never going to get that here at the issue. All right, you're gonna get applauded when you go out on a limb and you take a stand for yourself. So good job, NHL.
I'm with it. Miss number 2 here. We've said for a couple weeks now that the Bills and Sean McDermott, right, with the noise coming out of Stephon Diggs, the disappointing couple of years in the playoffs, right?
Yep.
I said I'm not saying I would fire Sean McDermott quite yet, but let's not act like his seat isn't warming or should be warming. But they go ahead and give him an extension through the end of 2027, so he's around for another at least 3 to 4 years. So it's not what I would have done. I'm not a huge fan of the move. Clearly, the Bills are thinking differently. They also gave that same extension to Brandon Beane, the GM. So I not my move, but it is what it is.
Well, here's the thing that's surprising to me. I mean, we talked about it last week about the Bills and that you can expect steps back and you can expect things to not run as smoothly anymore. And to my surprise, we actually got positive feedback from listeners and from viewers on that video, which I was not expecting. Usually when you go after a powerhouse like that, you're going to get Bills Mafia coming at you.
Yeah.
But we had a lot of support, a lot of agreement. Just look, they haven't been the same. And it's clearly evident in the actual game itself. It's been clearly evident that they've taken steps back already, and I think that's going to continue.
Speaking of blowback, I hope I don't get a ton about the Niners, because I like the Niners. I like Niner fans, too.
Yeah, I mean, they're not bad.
And I hope I'm wrong. I'm just saying.
They have a sweet stadium, too. Levi Stadium is freaking awesome.
All right, hit number 3 here. Used to be Candlestick back in the day. Remember the old Candlestick? Yeah. Anyway, hit number 3 here. The Mets struggles. We've said, they're what, I think 7-8 games under 500. And I say this especially with baseball. It's like, yes, you can go out and buy, the best players, but we've seen, especially this year, that does not always guarantee success, right? I'm not saying the Pirates have been uber successful. They're in roughly the same record area as the Mets, but they've been exceeding expectations. The Rays have a low payroll. The Guardians are always competitive, and they have a low payroll, right? The Orioles, right? This year has kind of gone against what we thought.
It's been a flip.
Yeah, it's been a little bit of a flip, and we said this with the Mets. You can't just go out and buy all the best players and expect to win. I expected they weren't going to be as good as everybody was hyping them up to be, and we're exactly right.
So now maybe we see a different strategy of things, maybe to a slight extent.
Switches up.
And we talked about it. Like, you can't, it doesn't matter how much you're paying. If you're paying it to the wrong pieces and to the wrong guys at the wrong time,
It doesn't matter.
you're gonna get got.
Yep, and they got. Miss number 3 are kind of a miss for me, hit for you. College World Series, I had Tennessee. Now, they were uber competitive, and they did end up losing to the eventual national championship. So I still feel decent about Tennessee as a baseball team, but you had LSU.
I had LSU.
Of course, they win. Shout out to them. Dylan Cruz, Paul Skeens, Trey Morgan, Cade Beloso, the whole entire Tommy White. I mean, they played their ass off. Good for LSU, and they win the College World Series.
And really, my advice when it came to picking that came from you.
Yeah.
I heard what you said the very first week. So the very first week, we didn't pick a winner. We picked that the next week before it got actually into all the Omaha
I think I
play.
said that would be my winner, but my dark horse pick was Tennessee, right?
Yeah. The thing that you said about the first series when they were playing Kentucky, and I said, you know what, that was my miss. I said I'm gonna take Kentucky here as
in the
my
Supers.
dark horse. Yeah, just as like to and they come out and you said talent wins in college baseball.
Yeah,
the talent wins. They had way more talent than anybody else on the board.
Even than a really good Wake Forest team that they disposed of. Florida has a lot of talent. But it's 1 through 9 that's just wildly impressive for LSU. Their pitching staff was really deep, so good for LSU.
Going to be a lot of dudes that come out of that program. That
Oh, for sure. They still have a couple guys coming back. Yeah, they'll be just fine. They're in good hands with Coach Jay Johnson. But yeah, guys, that was hits and misses. That was it for the first segment there. Don't go anywhere. We're going to have some risers and fallers here in the upcoming 2023 NFL season, so don't go anywhere. All right, welcome back in. Second segment, the issue. Is it the 29th of June now? Something like that?
Yeah, June 29th.
Whatever. I mean, time flies. I don't understand it. I don't know where it goes. But I'm all right with it because we're getting closer and closer to the NFL season, like you mentioned earlier. And we are starting to talk almost exclusively NFL, like we like to. So like good. The viewers want. We're just giving the people what they want.
So good. All the subscribers, most of them subscribed during the NFL season last year. So they're here for NFL content.
Could you blame them? NFL's king. We've said it 1,000 times. Like, we can sit here and talk baseball all day, but I know for a fact the views are going to go down. And I enjoy talking about football a lot more.
I love talking football.
It's very hard for me to talk 162 games of baseball. It's just not possible.
We are just getting so close to the... Here we go. 7 hours of commercial-free football starts now. Oh, my God.
With a Mr. Scott Hansen. God, I love Scott Hansen.
Oh, my gosh.
But anyway, we're going to have some risers and fallers here in this first segment. Kind of talking... There's usually like 7 new playoff teams, 6 to 7 new playoff teams in the league every year. So there's going to be risers and fallers, right? Somebody's got to fall out for for that new playoff team to get into the playoffs, right? And so kind of looking ahead, who are some of the risers and fallers that we can foresee, right? Maybe not necessarily predicting, but that we would not be shocked if they take a step back. So let's start. We'll start with the good news. We'll start with the good side, the risers. We'll make some friends before we start pissing people off in this video. So we'll start with the risers. Let's start with the Broncos. I think, to me, this is almost a no-brainer. First of all, I don't think it's possible for Russell Wilson to be as bad as he was. I mean,
really hope not.
There was the one stat, it was floating around on TikTok and Twitter and stuff. It was like week 13, and he had more bathrooms in his mansion than he did touchdown passes. Do you remember that when that was a thing?
Yeah.
I think he's got like 14 bathrooms or something like that. And it was like, it is week 12 of the NFL season, and Russell Wilson still has more bathrooms than he does touchdown passes, right? So there's no way he could be as bad as he was. They had cluster injuries at running back and on the offensive line, and at wide receiver there were some key injuries as well. And you gain a Hall of Fame coach. Like, there's not a lot of ways that you can foresee them being as bad as they were. Now, again, they won 6 games. By rising, I mean winning about 50% more games, I think is what we would kind of classify as rising. So Can they win 9 games? I think absolutely they can win 9 games. I'd predict them closer to 10. In my eyes, I think they are a much better football team this year and the first team in the riser category.
I'm going to agree with you. And I'm also going to say, God, why don't you love TikTok? To give you information like that.
It's the dumbest things like that, but I love it.
Yeah, and it really just shows. It shows how bad he was, quite honestly. And he's going to take a step forward. You have a better coach. You have more pieces now. Like, this thing has to get going at some point. Everybody kind of thought it was going to go last year. It was like a slow burn.
Yeah,
sometimes you hit that button and it's like, oh, what the hell happened? And then it just
He was a lot better also. The last 3 games of the season, once Hackett was gone, he was a much better quarterback.
Oh, so
you could see where there's area for development and where he'll get better. The next riser here, let's go with the Detroit Lions.
Okay.
So, look, the division's wonky, right? And No, I think Minnesota is still going to be a good football team, right? So they went 11-0 in one possession games last year. It usually does not happen like that.
Especially
but to be fair, the year before they went like 2-8, right? So it's gonna even out. It's gonna be closer. They'll be closer to like 5-4, 6-4, something like that in one possession football games. So the Vikings, I think, will take a slight step back. We know for a fact the Packers are going to take a slight step back. And the Bears, it's like people are saying, oh, they had a good draft this, good draft that. I still don't think they addressed the positions of need. I don't think Justin Fields is a competent thrower of the football. I just don't.
And they're still overpaying at the wrong positions.
They still overpay at the wrong positions. I don't think the offensive line is any good. The receivers are okay. I think DJ Moore is like a really good 2, not necessarily a 1. But anyway, the Lions are going to take this step forward. The division is going to come down. They're in the weaker NFC.
They could win the division.
They could win the division. We didn't love their first-round picks in terms of value, but I think overall the draft, they assessed their needs, and they got very, very competent players. Maybe not home runs, but very competent players in the draft. And they already had good players. Amon-Ra St. Brown. They got rid of T.J. Hawkinson, but they have a really good offensive line. Jared Goff with protection is fantastic, which he gets it in Detroit. Dan Campbell, we think, is a good coach, good enough at least.
Yeah.
You could foresee them winning 10 games, 11 games maybe, and winning the division.
I think they definitely take a step up. Definitely. They're starting to move in the right direction with things.
It'd be like West Virginia. They'd be burning couches in Detroit.
They would be.
Third and final is the hometown team, and it's very easy for us to sit here and say, oh, the Steelers this, Steelers that. But if you look objectively, the last 9 games, Kenny Pickett won 7 of 9 of his starts to end the season.
Beat the Ravens.
He had 3 game-winning drives in the last month of the season. Very, very good steps in the right direction. And also, you can see the team get better around him as they got used to him. The play calling got slightly better. I would still prefer to not see Matt Canada's
100%
coaching this football team.
Yeah.
But whatever. But anyway, you could see them going in the right direction to end last season. I really like the draft. They assessed the need on the offensive line. You get a second good tight end. You need another rotational pass rusher. You got one. You need a defensive lineman. You got one, right? This team is going to be significantly better. And when TJ Watt is healthy and plays, they win 70% of their games. He's healthy. He's going to play. Cannot wait to watch him.
Yeah, I think this is a team that our expectations on the Steelers have always been, not inflated. We're just because we're from Pittsburgh.
Pretty realistic. I think we had them. Did we have them at 8-9 or 9-8 last year?
We had them at 3rd in the division. Yeah,
that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, so we had the Ravens and we had the Bengals above them. And
it's exactly what happened.
Exactly what played out. We've always been realistic on our Steeler takes, but their weapons are really good. George Pickens is fantastic.
Yeah, Deontay Johnson is a very good route runner, although a little overrated, but a very good player.
If he's your number 2,
I like that. I think Pat Freiermuth's a top 5
tight
end.
Now the tight end combo they have is going to be
I think Muth's
awesome.
a top 5 tight end. I really think he is. Let's go to the fallers category. So the Steelers are rising up, so somebody's got to fall down. I think it's the Ravens. Now, you look at the most noisy franchise in the last couple of years, right? Green Bay was very, very noisy, right? Clearly did not have a very good year. Arizona with the Kyler Murray situation, very noisy. Didn't have a great year, right? Cleveland, there you go. Noise, particularly in the NFL, does not equal wins almost ever.
No.
Right? The noise of the offseason, generally, the worse the football team is going forward, right? Even Tom Brady, before Tom Brady's last year in New England, right? You're hearing, talking about weapons this and weapons that. He's recording the documentaries and shows, and he's looking at houses here and there. Noisy. And even New England couldn't get the job done, right?
Yeah.
Noise does not work in the NFL. The Ravens have had easily the most noisy offseason, right, in terms of Lamar's contract discussion, holding out here, let's sign OBJ, and J.K. Dobbins is upset with his role in the offense, and blah, blah, blah. But all you're hearing is noise out of Baltimore. It's quieted down since the Lamar contract kind of got figured out, but noise does not equal wins. I think they take a step back. I think it's a 7-win team. I think it's a very injury-prone team. I think they win 7 games. The Steelers finish in 2nd and take over that playoff spot that the Ravens had.
Yep. A team that can't stay healthy and filled with just drama. You look around, you saw it happen to Washington. You saw it happen to Houston, Dallas even. So,
we'll get to Dallas.
Just look around. Just look around at what's happening. Understand the trend. And then project from there, and that's what we're doing. And I can definitely see the Ravens taking that path just straight downward this year.
All right, so you mentioned Dallas. It's a perfect segue. Let's go to Dallas. So first of all, I think they lose a top 3 offensive coordinator in football. That means Mike McCarthy is now calling plays, which when we have seen him call plays, I don't love that at all.
Don't love that.
I don't like my head coach calling plays, period, unless it's like an Andy Reid, Sean McVay maybe, especially not with Mike McCarthy.
No.
Sorry, but it's true. Again, you lose Kellen Moore, that's a problem. You lose, right? Like, so if CeeDee Lamb rolls an ankle, who are you throwing the football to? You could keep telling me Brandon Cooks. It's like his 8th team in 8 years for a reason. Belichick moved off him. Sean Payton moved off. Like, good coaches and good franchises have moved off of Brandon Cooks. It's for a reason. Yeah. You lose Zeke, so now it's all Tony Pollard, which I like, but let's not act like the backfield is a world beater. The offensive line is aging yet again. I think Trayvon Diggs is the most overrated corner in football. I think Stephon Gilmore is the most overrated second corner in football.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see it with Dallas. I think it's an 8-win football team.
There are a lot of bad spots.
I think it's an 8-win football team.
A lot of bad spots, and Dak can't carry that weight on his own.
Could not agree more. Okay, now let's go to the third one, which we've talked about before. I think the Buffalo Bills. And this is back to the noise discussion. You can't have this much noise, this much uncertainty, and this much disappointment for the same reason in consecutive years. Right? Sean McDermott has to be better. The offense has to be better. And I think it starts with the whole defensive culture thing. I just think it does. And you see the same thing in Pittsburgh now. I think Pittsburgh's starting to kind of break out of it. But 5, 6, 7, 8 years, you can't develop an offensive line? There's still not a run game? Are we kidding?
Yeah.
It's you have to be better. And again, the noise. Noisy teams do not win, cannot stress it enough, and they have been noisier than anybody.
Yeah, it's really bad. It's really been bad there.
So we got risers and fallers. Risers, Broncos, Steelers, Lions. Look for them in the playoffs. Fallers, Ravens, Bills, Dallas, booking their early trips to Cancun. Let them know I sent you guys. Thank you very much. But let's get into some news. Story number 1. I guess this is kind of sports. Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk.
Oh, man.
Reportedly are in the process of agreeing to a cage fighting match. Basically like UFC, MMA, PFL, whatever league you're into watching. But yeah, it's interesting. First of all, Zuckerberg is like a black belt, I think, in something. I don't know. I've seen him do some stuff. I don't know. It looks pretty interesting. But Elon Musk is like kind of ripped.
Yeah, he is. Like freakishly ripped.
Also, like pretty tied in with like the MMA community. Joe Rogan, a couple other guys that are like big in MMA.
Yeah.
Whether that be former fighters or trainers or just guys that are just do jiu-jitsu a ton. Elon Musk is very tied in with that type of crowd. So I'd be very interested. Look, at the end of the day, it is a product. It is a television product. Would I buy the pay-per-view? Absolutely. 100 times over.
100%.
How could you not buy the pay-per-view on that?
I mean, you have to. I mean, who's the best billionaire? That's what we're figuring out now. So I'm looking here. Zuckerberg has trained in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay, so I think is he not a black belt?
He is a black belt. Wow, he trains with Mikey Musumeci, a world champion in submission grappling.
Yeah, I don't even know who it is, but I mean...
So, I mean, look, it's going to be... Is it crazy to say that it might be like a pretty good fight?
I think
even if the skill and the talent isn't there.
I have a weird feeling that Musk would be a better striker. Zuckerberg, on the flip side, more of a grappler.
I feel like Zuckerberg has the reach. Does Musk not come off as a short guy to you?
No, I think he's kind of tall.
Is he?
I think he's like every bit of 6'2", 6'3".
Really?
You got to look it up now.
Elon Musk.
How tall is Elon? I'm gonna go with don't say. Can I guess?
Yeah. You guess height and weight.
I'm gonna go 6'3", 220.
Musk is 6'1", 195.
Okay, not that bad.
Okay, so now let's
What's
go over to his
Zuckerberg?
opponent.
5'11", 170. He's smaller. For sure, smaller.
Why centimeters? Yeah, like why centimeter? Oh, okay. Wow, a lot shorter. 5'7".
Wow.
5'7", 154.
Wow.
So who's
that
cutting
is
weight?
so small.
So then who's cutting weight?
Well, there's only one person that can cut weight.
Or are we gaining weight for it?
Okay, there you go. Like, what weight are they going to fight at?
Yeah.
I mean, they probably won't have a weight.
I don't know.
There's not a catch weight between 195 and 155.
Yeah. There is like
175, but like
160, 165-ish.
That is such an advantage for... You're telling me that Elon Musk's going to cut 30 to 35 pounds?
Oh, he should. He would be a monster if he did. Could you imagine?
No. Okay, like a good catch weight would be like 170, 175. Even then, that is still not going to happen.
I want to see my boy Elon getting the sauna for like hours. Like, you watch before the UFC fights, dudes like holding them in there.
Yeah.
Like holding the door shut.
It's like realistic to say like 170.
My time is...
Zuck could gain,
like
15 to 20 pounds, and Musk could lose 20.
How are these guys finding time to do this? Elon Musk already runs like what?
Okay,
6
yes,
companies?
he does. But at this point, like, and I'm not saying that they're not highly involved in their ventures, but like they're so big now at this point, like it's like self-sustaining with or without them at this point. They add to it, but you're telling me they can't take a couple months off the train, or not even off completely, but they can't take a day off a week for double months and go train. Like,
I can't wait to watch.
They
that
definitely
fight.
could.
I can't wait.
That would be crazy. All right, let's get on to an actual sports story. Well, even this one isn't even an actual sports story. It's just slow sports time. Story number 2, Derek Carr came out and said the main reason, like the straw that broke the camel's back in the sense of leaving the Las Vegas Raiders, was that actually they pissed off his wife, made his wife very emotional. The report didn't say what they actually said to her, what the action was that evoked the emotional response.
Yeah.
But either way, Derek Carr, very, very big into his faith, very big into big family man type guy. So I'm not saying that you should ever, make a significant other cry as you're a sports franchise. That's probably not the best way to do business. But especially not with somebody who's very tied into his family, religion, all that type of stuff like Derek Carr is. Look, not to say that I don't care, but what this says more about anything, the reason that I care about this story is that this once again shows how incompetent the Raiders have been over the last 2 decades. They have been an unstable franchise for the better part of 15 years. I mean, Jamarcus Russell bust, and hiring the wrong coach, the John Gruden issues. I mean, you're hiring a dude Mike Mayock, who was known for fantasy mock drafts and draft analysis, and he's your GM. It's like, this franchise has been very unstable. I'm glad Derek Carr got out. We've always been big Derek Carr supporters. We've said he's been the only reason that they've been even mildly successful, or mildly interesting and competitive, has been Derek Carr. So I'm actually happy he's out of the organization with a competent franchise in New Orleans.
I agree. I've been the last couple, I guess, minute and a half there, I was looking for the reason, and it's still, no matter the source, you can't find the reason.
I would imagine he wants to keep that in-house.
Yeah.
If you're Derek Carr, or if you're the Raiders, obviously.
I guess, but I'm interested now. You've given me a little taste of tea. I need the full story.
I would agree with you, but I don't think we're going to get it.
We're going to keep digging, and if we find it, it'll be next week's newsletter.
Fair enough. Story number 3 here. Les Miles, former LSU coach, has had, 30-something, 38 wins vacated.
Yeah, 36 or 38, something like that. Right in between there.
35 to 40, we'll throw it out there.
Nice range.
I want to say it was 37, actually.
Yeah, it was 37.
Okay. He has 37 wins vacated from the point of, 2012 to 2015, I believe, from LSU at the time, due to one of his offensive linemen being ineligible for his entire playing career.
How does that happen?
How?
How?
I know that, you could push a lot of things through, for an athlete. You hear stories all the time, the athlete didn't even go to class, their homework, somebody took their tests for him and blah, 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 tutoring and free this, free that.
Yeah, but how?
How does somebody that is ineligible, how does that get through? I don't understand how that gets through, but either way, I think that makes him ineligible for the Hall of Fame. Is that right?
It does.
So he's now ineligible for the Hall of Fame. Don't know if he would have made it anyway, but he was a pretty successful coach for about a 10-year run there.
Yeah.
Has since dropped off an absolute cliff, as we can see here. At one point he was coaching some smaller Division I school. I think he was even in the USFL or XFL or something like that.
Yeah,
so
something.
he's been bouncing around. So he gets those wins vacated. Won't be a college football Hall of Famer. Whatever.
I just want to know how that happened.
That's mainly why we put the story in here. How does that?
With all the checks and balances and everything that you have to go through to be an athlete in the NCAA.
Athlete. And you just weren't even eligible for the
entire
entire playing career?
Eligibility form.
Not even once. His entire playing career?
Are umpires not more strict at the 12U baseball level with birth certificates
than that?
The NCAA
you'd have to be.
With Division I football?
So now my question is, does that almost border on I don't know if would this be a federal offense? Like plagiarism and forgery? Is it?
It could be. I don't know.
Like,
I mean,
there's no
this is
way
new and developing.
You would have had to afford something. Like you said, you're more strict at 12U tournaments with birth certificates and shit like that. Like, you'd have to forge something.
Yeah. And, like, what made him ineligible?
I would imagine grades.
Grades?
How else do you become ineligible? Isn't it grades?
I guess, but, like...
I guess it could be, like
what else?
behavior.
Age? Like, what if you, like, already used up years? I don't know.
Now, that one, I feel like there's no way that would get through. Grades are reported by the school. So you can mess with that.
I guess.
But, like, the NCAA determines your eligibility.
Fair.
Maybe he was paying somebody off in the NCAA.
Maybe.
Do we have ourselves a little scheme going on here?
Do we have ourselves a blindside part 2?
I don't know. But either way, guys, that was some very interesting sports kind of news there. Don't get anywhere. We're going to talk a little bit about Baker and some other NFL quarterbacks, and then the College World Series in the third segment, so don't go anywhere.
Welcome back in. Third segment of The Issue on Thursday, June 29th. We got a full third segment for you this time. Going to start it off with a little discussion. We're going to talk about Baker Mayfield a little bit, rip into him. It's been a while, as I've mentioned, when we started the show. And then we're going to finish things off in this third segment with a little discussion on the College World Series, talk a little bit of college baseball, because, I mean, that has just been all over the place in news, on ESPN, on every major sports channel. They're talking about college baseball and the spectacle that we just witnessed in Omaha. So we will get to all of that this segment, but guys, make sure you're going to theissuesports.com, sign up for that newsletter, and while you're there, check out the shop, all the clothes, all the merchandise that we have there. We have some big things coming up with the show, so make sure you're following along on every social media platform, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, all of it. All of the links can be found in the link tree in the description of the episode, no matter where you're watching or listening, and we appreciate you being here. Third segment of The Issue. Let's get into it.
Yeah, so, I mean, you mentioned the whole Baker Mayfield. I don't follow a ton of the NBA draft. I kind of know who the prospects are, what they kind of bring to the table, what they lack, right? Victor Wembanyama, blah, 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 Scoot Henderson, right? And everybody's raving about, Scoot Henderson's wildly athletic. And then you hear, like, well, but he can't really shoot. Very, very vertical. Crash to the basket. He's only 6'2", so now you're looking at, like, injuries. Very, like, Derrick Rose-esque, who was great for about 3-4 years. Didn't really win a ton. And then kind of fizzles out. Like John Wall, same thing, right? Russell Westbrook, productive, not necessarily a winning player, though. And so I started thinking, quarterbacks, right? Like, how does this relate to football? Because I try to relate everything back to football because it's what I'm more interested in. It's what you guys are mostly more interested in. So I'm like, thinking about football, I'm like, this kind of reminds me of, like, Baker Mayfield, for example. And we'll get back to Baker. Let me go roundabout here. Looking at the skill set of a player, it's more than just the skill set itself. If it was just about the skill set, Jameis Winston would be a top 5 quarterback. He's got a cannon arm, can move pretty well, fairly accurate as long as he's not throwing it to the other team. That's more decision making than anything. But it's about what can you. It's more than just the physical talent. Let's show Kirk Cousins, for example, right? Everybody loves banging Kirk Cousins. I've been saying Kirk Cousins is a top 10 to 12 quarterback for the last 3 years since the show's been a thing. Even before that, but publicly, since the show's been a thing, Kirk Cousins is a top 10 to 12 quarterback, no problem. What does Kirk do well? Because it's not his arm. He doesn't move all that well. He's a good leader, but he's not like a rah-rah Brady type guy where he's going to get in your ear. What does Kirk Cousins do really well? Well, let's start with this. Grown up in the room. You got no problems with Kirk. Kirk's not out of clubs. Kirk's got wife, kids, blah, blah. Kirk is a grown up in the room. You're going to have no problem with Kirk Cousins. Well, what about between the ears? Very good pre-snap. Kirk is known as a very, very good pre-snap quarterback. And then what's the third component to Kirk? Consistency. He's consistently about 100 pass rating. He's going to give you roughly 25 touchdowns. Yeah, he'll throw about 9, 10 picks a year. He's going to complete 67% of his throws. He's going to be good, not special. But he's rarely, primetime games aside, rarely going to be bad. It's just going to be very, very average Kirk Cousins. Dak Prescott, same thing so far. Now, I think Dak is slightly worse, but that's fine. Derek Carr, same thing. You could be thinking, like, so really, because if it was about talent, Baker Mayfield spins a beautiful football. He's got a really nice arm. fairly accurate too. I actually like his throwing motion a ton. I think Baker's a very talented. If you said right now, give me the 32 most talented quarterbacks in the world, I think Baker Mayfield absolutely deserves to be a top 20 talent-wise starter in the National Football League. But it's about more than just that. And I've been saying that since Baker came into the league. It's about more than just, flashy talent. Right? It's about, hey, are you a grown-up in the room? Are you going to go call out the medical staff at the podium? Are you going to throw a pick and try to square up a safety, hurt your shoulder, and be out for the year? And then try to play through it and tell us that you deserve something for playing through it? I'll give you a round of applause. Cool, you're tough. Doesn't matter if your team's losing when you're trying to play through your pain. It does not matter. Right? So it's more about the character of a player. Like, for example, Tim Duncan. We're relating this all the way back to the NBA draft, which is kind of where I started. Tim Duncan was never the most talented. What was his nickname? Mr. Fundamental. Right? Just did all the little things right. Hit the little square on the backboard on every little bank shot. Mr. Fundamental. Right? It's more than just high-flying talent in the NBA, in the NFL, etc. And it's no different for NFL quarterbacks. I would argue it's the consistency that sets quarterbacks apart. We talk about it with Joe Burrow all the time. Not the biggest. He doesn't move the best. That's Lamar. Doesn't have the biggest arm. That's either Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. Justin Herbert's now in that category. He's not he's tough, but he's not like the toughest. He's had some injuries, his ACLs. But why is he so? Because he's consistently very precise, very focused. It's more the intangibles than the tangibles with him. Very similar to Dak. Now, I think Joe is obviously a much, much better quarterback than Dak, but Dak's the same way. Dak's arm's not the best. He doesn't move the best. But Dak's a very good leader. He's going to say the right things at the podium. These are the things that set people apart. This is what Baker Mayfield has never had.
Yeah. When the character comes into question, that's how you know you have a problem. So the one thing I want to look at, take it back to college with Baker, and we're going to compare him now. So I was thinking originally, look at Mahomes in college and look at Baker in college. But they have two very different personalities. I would say somebody with a little bit closer of a personality to Baker Mayfield would be Joe Burrow, because they both have the swag about them. They both had the grit, the chip on the shoulder in college, right?
Had to transfer.
100%. Yeah. So you have Joe Burrow in college, smoking the cigar after the game, after the national championship win, right? Just exuding confidence. But he wasn't grabbing his nuts in the middle of the field, and he wasn't running from cops before draft day, and he wasn't, getting in fights and picking fights with little kids at a coin toss against Kansas. These little things you could see coming from miles down the road with Baker Mayfield. And you compare him to somebody who has a very, very similar aura about them in Joe Burrow. You don't find those character problems. He actually turns that competitive edge into what it is, a competitive edge. He doesn't let that become his downfall. He uses it to his advantage. Now, the reason I didn't want to compare him to Mahomes was because Mahomes was never the flashy guy. He was never the high-flying, flashy guy in college, Texas Tech. Oh, my God. That was never Mahomes. Mahomes was very just
under the radar.
Stick to what you do. Just don't look at anybody else. Keep your head down and grind. And look at where that got him. So there's different ways and there's different formulas of how to make it as an NFL quarterback. And Baker Mayfield just has not followed any of the right pathway to where he's at now. And look where that's landed him. He is now known as the guy in Tampa that's replacing Tom Brady. Already came in, said he's not going to be Tom Brady.
We know that, thanks.
Just, to tamper expectations. Already had to bounce around from where he had a great, handed to him on a silver platter of a situation.
Great roster.
In Cleveland. Screwed it up. Found himself in Carolina for, how many weeks? And then he was over in Los Angeles for 12. A little bit, and it was kind of awkward when he got traded there. But then
had a good game.
He had a good game. But then he didn't even end up playing all that much, and now he's in Tampa. You can see where it unraveled, and it started to unravel for Baker the day that he got drafted, and even before that in college. You had all the telltale signs. So what did Cleveland do? They went and drafted him. So if that says anything about Cleveland.
Well, I said he wasn't the number one pick. I think he was a first-round pick, maybe not number one. But, I mean, pivoting to another sports number one overall pick, Dylan Cruz and the LSU Tigers obviously winning the national championship.
Yeah, absolutely crazy series.
So I'm watching it, and actually, unfortunately, I wasn't even able to catch most of Game 1, which was the only competitive game in the series. Worked Friday night, doesn't matter. That was the one where Cade Beloso home run was at top of the 11th. Either way, Ty Floyd, 17 strikeouts. Like, that was the best game of the series. Game 2, 24-4 Florida. That's ridiculous. By the way, I saw a stat. Florida put up more runs in that game than, 43 out of the 66 career games in Florida's football program's career against LSU. So let me say it again. Let me just write it out for you. LSU football and Florida football have met 66 times. 43 of the 66 times, Florida didn't score over 24 points. They scored 24 points in a baseball game in Game 2. So, but then obviously Game 3, you're like, okay, well, LSU won close, then Florida blew them out. Like, does Florida have the advantage? Wyatt Langford comes out with a 2-run home run to start the game off as the 2-hitter. And you're like, oh, okay, Florida's got this. Like, Florida's in the driver's seat. Next thing you know, LSU pours it on, 18-4, Game 3. But the one thing that stood out to me, we talked about this last week, was the passion and the intensity of college athletics is something that you just don't find everywhere. Like, I love pro athletics. I love that the skill is higher. I love that the stakes are higher. All that, right? That's great. But I think outside of football, I could argue that college athletics is right up there with professional athletics in terms of what I would want to watch as a television product. I think the NFL is significantly better than college football. I don't think it's a debate. If you said you can watch football one day of the weekend, Saturdays, I will just never watch college football again. I really don't think that's up for debate. I think NFL football is significantly better. Baseball, it's close. Now, regular season, it's neck and neck. But if it's regular season MLB and postseason college baseball, it's not even close. It's not even. I would watch college baseball all day long. I would probably watch college basketball over NBA basketball, no matter really what time of year it is.
Yeah, same.
Just the intensity, the passion is insane. And then in that series specifically, when you have the intensity and the passion, and then you could back it up with the talent, I mean, you got, most people would say, the consensus top 3 picks in the draft, right? Wyatt Langford, the center fielder for Florida. Dylan Cruz, the center fielder for LSU. And then, of course, Paul Skeens, the right-hander from LSU. There's 102 consistently, right? When you can put the passion with the amount of talent that was on that field, and you saw it on display. I mean, even Florida's 7-hitter, Ty Evans, plays right field, had 4 home runs all year coming into the game, or coming into the Men's College World Series. He's hitting, 220. Sets the record for the most home runs in a Men's College World Series, hits 5 of them over their course of, 8 games in Omaha, 7 games in Omaha. It's wildly impressive. Like, the amount of talent, and like I said, that's their 7-hitter, 4 home runs on the year, batting 220. Comes in, sets the record, right? Jack Caglione, who is college baseball Shohei Ohtani, leads the league leads the entire country in home runs, 33 of them, right? Exit velos of 120. And then he's also going to come on the bump and throw 99. Now, granted, he had a pretty bad start in Game 3, but whatever. Still a freak of nature, right? The talent level's insane. And it begs the question, who do the Buccos take at number 1? I think, to me, now, do I like Paul Skeens a lot? Absolutely. To me, I think the safer bet is Dylan Cruz. I would probably go Dylan Cruz. I think the issue with a guy a hard-throwing right-hander, more times than not, what's going to happen? Which, if I could tell you right now, I don't even care where he ends up at the end of his career. What will he need at some point in his career, probably before he even gets to the majors, probably before he even gets to AAA, what will he need?
Crazy off speed.
No. Well, I'm not even talking to his game. What will at some point he receive before he even gets to AAA? Tommy John surgery. It's almost 100%. I'm telling you right now, it's almost 100%.
Yeah, that's the sad truth of upper velos now that we're seeing.
Who is the only guy good prospect that the Pirates have drafted in the last 10 years that hasn't needed Tommy John? Garrett Cole.
I was going to say Garrett Cole.
Tyone, yup. Keller, yup. Cole, yup. I mean, look, Glasnow, yup. Go down the line. Almost all of them.
Yeah.
except for Garrett Cole. But my point is, like, the chance that Paul Skeens, and almost of no fault of his own, like those type of injuries are kind of crazy. What are the odds he is pitching really well, gets Tommy John, comes back, is never the same, never sees the bigs, and if he does, he's just not effective?
Unfortunately, pretty high.
The chance of that happening is much more than the chance of Dylan Cruz not being a 300 hitter. Like, the dude just rakes.
Yeah.
Like, he is a safer... Now, if Paul Skeens ends up being successful, doesn't get hurt, stays healthy, right? His upside is much higher because you got a guy who's a flat-out ace, and by the time he works his way to the big leagues, he could be 104 miles an hour as a starter. That's just insane.
Yeah, you can.
His upside is there. But Dylan Cruz's floor is, like, right there. Or, like, Skeen's upside, Dylan Cruz's floor. Like, it's right there.
Yeah,
Dylan Cruz is a safer bet. I don't know.
It's going to be... So, like, there's so much talent in this draft this season. Like, this is very comparable to... What draft was it? Was it the first NFL draft that we covered where it was just talent after talent after talent?
I think the first one we covered was Joe Burrow to a Justin Herbert draft.
Yeah, so like there was a lot
pretty
of
good draft, yeah.
This has to be one of the most loaded baseball drafts that I can think of in a very long time.
I mean, those top three, that doesn't even include Max Clark, the high school prospect from Indiana. Vanderbilt commit. Nasty.
The problem is I'm going to miss watching these guys in college, though. That's the thing. Because then they're going to fall into the 162 games schedule of the MLB. And it's just not.
Well, we won't see him for another 2 to 3 years, probably.
Right.
I could argue if you draft Dylan Cruz, which I think the draft is like, isn't that soon? I feel like we should know this, but whatever. Look it up, Google it. But anyway, actually, I gotta wait to hear when the draft actually is. But I could make an argument.
July 9th.
July 9th, yeah, so soon.
Literally right before the next episode.
I could make an argument that July 9th. No, what kind of math is that?
Yeah, the next episode is going to be the only July episode that we get before the draft.
Yeah, you said that's right before the next episode. The next episode's right before that.
This, yes.
Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. Hold on. Anyway, so July 9th, right? I could make the argument Dylan Cruz should be sent right to Double-A. I think he's that good of a hitter. I'm dead, like, for the remainder of the year. No?
I think we need to see that more often. I think that's where baseball lacks a lot because
I would send him right to Double-A. Wouldn't hesitate. I think he would be my everyday center fielder in Double-A. If he tears it up, I'd put him in Triple-A. I swear to God, what's the weight? That is a big league hitter in college right now.
Yeah. See, that's the one thing. If we just want to get on that for a second too, with baseball and like the hype around the MLB draft is so low. I think because the guys that get drafted, you don't see them for such a long time.
You don't see them for 2 to 3 years.
Like
in most cases.
In the NFL, if you're drafted in the top 2 to 3 rounds, you're going to be a starter as soon as the season starts, pretty much. Yeah,
I mean...
You're going to be inserted. You're going to be used in some way.
100%. You will play semi-significant minutes.
Yeah.
Snaps, whatever, yeah.
And in baseball, you don't get that. And I think you should because this talent pool is it's so deep this year.
I would agree. Either way, it was a great men's college World Series. Unfortunately, a couple duds there at the end with some blowouts. But nonetheless, a competitive men's college World Series, one for the ages. Good for LSU. They claim their 7th title in program history. So, loaded team. Good for them. Congratulations, LSU.
Yeah, I guess their final couple games were just like the NBA finals there for a little bit, and the NHL too, just kind of like all blowouts once you get to the end. Yeah. Stuck with a trend on the year. But guys, that is all we have for you today. So make sure you're going to theissuesports.com. Make sure you're going to all the social media accounts. Give us a follow, like, subscribe wherever you watch the podcast or listen to the podcast. We appreciate it either way. And we will catch you back here on Thursday before the MLB draft and get you maybe like a first 10 picks, maybe mock. I don't know. See where some guys land. But we'll do something for that next week. But guys, that was The Issue.